Time now to welcome in our good friend, former Bills center Mitch Morse, for his From the Armchair segment, which is presented by Raymore and Flanagan. Raymore and Flanagan, a proud partner of the Buffalo Bills, and we're going to have to get Raymore and Flanagan on the horn. We have to get like an authentic armchair for Mitch, since that's where he's sitting nowadays. Something big and comfy. Might even have to put you in recline mode if we can fit it in the shot,
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's robust and has a weight threshold of, I don't know, the fluctuation at this point could be tremendous. So,
are you going to be?
Raymore Flanagan's got some good stuff over there, so I'm sure they got something to help the kid
Are you
out.
going to be one of those offensive linemen that gets bigger after retires, or like thin
or smaller?
Like they almost never stay the same. Do you get bigger?
Yeah, well,
are you going to? Because they go both directions.
Well, there's much shame when I look in the mirror. So I'm hoping that just doesn't spiral into just, I'm already here, so why not just get bigger breasts? But I do think that it's going to be one of those things that it's going to be a slow burn. Like some guys, it just flies off, right? But for me, I'm just going to make it a slow burn if possible, and then hopefully get to a point where I can look at myself and not be disgusted.
All right. First, let's review the Week 2 game for the Bills against the Jets, which really, wire to wire, the Bills had control of this thing and never loosened their grip. They may have coasted a little bit, like Joe Brady did with his play selection. He's like, yeah, you know what? We're going to run that run play again. You know what? We're going to run that run play again. So he left a lot of stuff in the bag, for this week and in the future because he didn't need it. But I guess first and foremost, what stood out to you most about the Bills' performance in Week 2 at MetLife?
Well, I think one thing that we were all a little weary about, was if there was going to be some sort of emotional letdown from that big Week 1 win. And that was squashed completely. The guys came out first drive, super methodical. The defense came out first. Matt Milano made 2 huge stops, and then it was just kind of a snowball effect. Like there was no real point in this game where we felt like the Bills were losing control of it. I was surprised with the penalties. I thought the Jets, just how the feel of the game went, were way more penalized, just because I think those penalties that the Jets accrued were in such big momentum-killing moments. But I think there's a few things that stood out to me. Pass pro was a huge one, Chris. Again, this is Week 2 against a very good defensive front. You have Quinnen Williams, you have McDonald, among other guys, and giving up 1 sack and keeping up pressure away from the quarterback in those big moments was a tremendous thing. It was really cool to see.
And Josh in the pocket, I mean, certainly early on in the game, he broke it open when he had the 40-yard run, and then they had a penalty tacked on to the end of it. Give me a little bit of how does an offensive lineman feel about a quarterback pocket awareness? I mean, they got to work hand in hand. Josh is hard to sack, but as you said, they did a nice job around him anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's one of those things you wish you could say objectively, like this is how Josh has gotten better at this, but it's one of those things that's very subjective. I mean, you guys he's jumping over dudes, getting out of the way. It's just this presence he's got about him in the pocket. It's when to hold on to that ball tight. It's when to take that seam up the middle when the defense kind of splits. It's a beautiful thing. As an offensive lineman, people ask all the time, would you rather have a mobile quarterback or a stationary quarterback because you know where he is? And 10 out of 10, you'd rather a guy have the ability to get out of the pocket and get out of the way. But another thing I thought's pretty cool is that Josh is eluding this and not putting his offensive line in detrimental situations. Like a lot of the times you'll see these mobile quarterbacks when they're still trying to figure it out. You have 10, 15 penalties on the offense throughout the season on just holdings because guys don't know where they're going. But Josh seems to really be in sync with his offensive line. The offensive linemen really seem to be in sync with him. And I guess the best way to describe it is just poetry in motion.
What about on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, I know you referenced Milano making his presence felt there early, but collectively, what did you think about their performance, especially, after getting steamrolled in the previous week?
Well, I think that just kind of says what the Ravens are this year, which is a tremendous football team. They still gave up 100 yards of rushing, but I don't think that tells the full story. The stat line doesn't always. The one thing that it does say, the stat line, this is only 83 yards of passing for that Jets team that kind of put it on the Steelers the week before. Milano, like I said, really set the tone, I think, early. And then you got guys like Tre'Davious White and Christian Benford who had some real success coming off the edges on those blitz, making 2 tackles for losses. And then Joey Bosa. I mean, 15 pass rushes, 7 pressures, a sack, and then he has that fumble. His presence has been tremendous. I think he's been one of those great players for years. And to see him on a team like the Bills, it's a beautiful thing, my friend.
Yeah, and as you look forward to this week with the Dolphins, their identity or the way you kind of get a handle on them is that they're kind of a big play type of offense. They don't seem to be a grinded out 15 play, kind of drive team. They need some splash plays because of the way they have to run their offense around Tua. The ball has to come out quick. Because he has to release it so early in the down. How does that affect? I mean, does that ripple effect come all the way back to the offensive side of the ball? You being a center, I mean, you see how the Dolphins have to play their offense. What does that change about your philosophy going into a game as an offense?
Well, I think the thing that stood out the most watching the Dolphins, to your point, right? It's a feast or famine offense. They have those big playmaking players with Waddle and Hill who can really open up the field. You got some guys on the offensive line who are still trying to figure out how to work together. But the thing that's killing them right now is penalties. They're getting crushed with penalties. And then time of possession. I think last week they had 6 minutes of total possession time in the first half. And you give an offense like the Bills that opportunity to just kind of matriculate down the field. It just takes any momentum you have out of your football team. But I think they got guys on that offense. Like Achane is a tremendous football player. He really tore it up last week. And then on defense, you still have players like Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson and Seiler, all these dudes. They have players. And another guy who kind of came off the film to me was a guy named Jordan Brooks. Like he was all over the place on defense, but it'll be a battle for them. But I think they're also at a point where it's a short week. They're 0-2. They know what the narrative is. Just like, F it, dude. Let's see what happens. Fly around. I think we're going to get their best shot come this Thursday.
Well, yeah, they don't want to fall into an 0-3 hole. We know that because not many teams that start 0-3 make the playoffs. I think only 6 teams in the history of the league have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. So that's a hole they do not want to dive into. Achane has been a little bit of a Bills killer. I mean, in his 4 career games against the Bills, he has 6 touchdowns, and he's had some big yardage games. Do you see that as more of a byproduct of the focus for the Bills defensively being keeping a lid on Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, and you have to give them something, and so you'd rather have Achane catching the ball out of the backfield than Hill and Waddle catching a ball over your head?
That's a great question. I hadn't really thought of it that way. But to your point, like Achane, I don't think he's just a guy that the Bills might have had trouble with in the past. Watching the Patriots last week, he was, especially that first half, was dynamic. I mean, just his eyes, his vision, and then to your credit, and to your point, rather, excuse me, what he's able to do in the pass game is a treat. Like he's a good football player. So he's got a guy you got to keep your eyes on. And with those other dudes like the Tyreeks and the Waddles and all those guys, like this isn't a team that lacks skill by any means. It's just one of those teams that the execution is just killing these guys.
So you got this team in Buffalo, 2-0, emotional win week 1, and a clinical putting away of the Jets. What's the what's your mindset? What's your next step? How do you keep this rhythm going? How do you on a short week? Certainly, you don't have any time to reinvent anything. But what's the mindset for the Bills going forward to keep it rolling?
Yeah, Steve, I think with that short week, there's a sense of liberation. You don't have to digest too much information. The offensive and defensive coaches are going to try to keep schematically what they can the same from this past week, maybe add some wrinkles to it. But it also gives you a chance to there's a quick turnaround to your sole focus. You haven't really had that time to rest or get too much of this lackadaisical feel that we as people not in the building worry about. I think they're just going to let it fly. And then you have that opportunity to have another primetime game in Highmark. I don't think it's going to be a problem of execution. I think the only thing that could impede these guys would just be the true 4-day recovery turnaround.
Last one from me, Mitch, because I was curious about this. As we know, the Bills were well up on the Jets, and so, as I mentioned earlier, Joe Brady presumably left some stuff in the bag that he probably had in for this game plan, but didn't really need on Sunday. On a short week and I realize the opponent is different, so the game plan is going to be different, but I'm just wondering if a coordinator thinks this way at any point in time, and if you've experienced this in short turnarounds from a Sunday to a Thursday game, where a coordinator maybe kept stuff in the bag because you were up big and you won that game, and then 4 days later, coming off a full week where you did get to rep some of those plays you never used, does he pull those out on a short week to use this week, for example? Have you ever experienced that happening, or what do you think the likelihood of that is, taking into account it's a completely different opponent?
Yeah, Chris. I mean, there's definitely a chance. I think what the Bills did last week that was pretty great was they stuck to what was working and repped it over and over again. It wasn't too sexy, but that was, who cares when you're winning a football game?
Yeah, right.
Those short weeks, to your point, like it wouldn't be that difficult, like I said, to carry over stuff from that past game plan if they didn't have an opportunity to put it, if it still fits that style of defense and what we're going to see. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think they're going to be installing anything, like I had said before, too sexy that they hadn't had in the game plans prior to this.
All right, so I got to ask you, you were a center. You snapped the ball to Josh. You snapped the ball to Mahomes, all that. So you're in the game. Quarterback runs off the field with a bloody nose. You get Trubisky runs on, no practice snaps, no cadence. They didn't jump off sides in different cadence. And Mitchie comes in and throws an absolute pill, 31-yard, on how unbelievable. I've never seen that.
I think it's a testament to the type of professional Mitchell Trubisky is and the confidence that this team's got. Right. The pass pro and that was electric. They knew it was going to take a little bit of longer just because you're bringing in a guy who doesn't have the full rhythm of the game. But like to your point, that 3rd and 7 was a huge 3rd and 7 in the game to keep that momentum going. And that pill, like Trubisky's the man. And we were just as hyped up as anyone. I'm so happy for the guy. And it's just a credit to that team and a credit to him to lock in and be available and ready. And that's what you want in a QB2. And he's maybe the best in the game right now.
Yeah. Eric on the broadcast with me, obviously being a former center too, he said, usually the rule there is if a quarterback or a center gets hurt, take a knee on the field to give the guy that's got to come in time to take a few snaps or a few throws. But I guess Josh's nose was gushing so much blood. He's like, I got to get this stopped now. He didn't really have an opportunity to do that. So he has to go running off the field. So Mitch, didn't get any practice snaps, didn't get any practice throws, just comes in cold and just rips the thing. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I think it was the fastest Josh had ran all day too, and he had just popped off that 50-yarder. Right. When your nose is as fractured or as saucy as his was, you're going to get off the field as fast as possible. Look at him go. He's just up, no chance, running off the field.
It's gushing.
And there it goes, and it's gone. Take the helmet off. Guys were on it, and Trubisky was already halfway out there. And the nice thing was, you really want to get those practice snaps when you're under center. Right. Shotgun snaps, and we all know, and he knows the cadence, especially with that away game cadence. It's not too much. There's not so much voice inflection on that, so it actually might be a little easier in those situations to come in cold and not have an operation change too much.
Yeah, well, easier than impossible, but yeah, he got it done. That was yeah. I didn't think about it until I watched it again, but nobody jumped off side. You always see it. Somebody's always jumping off sides because you just get into that rhythm. And I have to ask Mitch if he do you deliberately mimic Josh when you come in so they won't get jump off sides. You know what I mean? Because you've heard it 1,000 times, right? Just do it like Josh did it.
Yes, and backup quarterbacks are great ones. No matter what they've done in the past, they figure out and they study like a science what the QB1's cadence is, his voice inflections, how he carries out certain things, because they know when they come in, They don't want any hiccups, and they want it to be as seamless and smooth as possible for the rest of the crew.
Mitch, thanks as always.
Good stuff, man.
We'll enjoy the game on Thursday night. We'll catch up with you next week.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.